Get yourself ready for an interdimensional sensory experience. Welcome all to the dimension of sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. This is the 5D Podcast.
Welcome to the 5D Podcast, brought to you by Stuart Zack from 5D-blog.com. If you listen to us live now on Twitch TV/5D blog, welcome. And of course, welcome to those of you on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn and Stitcher. Be sure to check out the 5D-blog.com website for blog articles, competitions and news. And of course, check out the 5D YouTube channel, the details of which can be found on the 5D website. This episode of the 5D Podcast is brought to you by Lateflix.com, where you can find your comedies, horrors and thrillers. Those who stay up late watch Lateflix. Here you can see the hit new cartoon Dick and Gordy, currently showing 3 episodes streaming on Lateflix.com, and there'll be new episodes coming only to Lateflix.com. Hi Zack, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, mate. I'm fine. We've kind of got a very, very, very special guest again today.
We do. It's a little bittersweet for me because
bittersweet. Why?
I hear you guys had a romantic first time midweek and you didn't invite me.
we listen. He called me. I was just being polite and talking to Mr. Beesley over there in Beverly Hills, I believe. It is at the moment, yeah. So we've got it's a guy that we've been wanting on the podcast for quite a while. Let me just give a bit of an introduction very quickly. So, Max Beesley, English actor, best known possibly for his roles as Charlie Edwards in British television drama Hotel Babylon, has appeared in a variety of television shows such as Bodies, the adaptation of The History of Tom Jones, A Foundling, Survivors, Mad Dogs, Homeland Suits, Ordinary Lies, Jamestown, lots and lots and lots. Currently being seen as in The Outsider. And if that wasn't enough, which is really annoying because he's bloody talented, which really annoys me, is a British jazz and rock musician, performed with, good God, George Michael, George Benson, Take That, Jamiroquai, Robbie Williams, James Brown. That's kind of a very talented guy. Hiya, Max, how you doing, mate?
Great, lovely to see you, lads.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming on. No, I really appreciate it, because it's, I know you're busy, I know you've been working today, because you told me beforehand.
Fitting dryers on the top of the washing machine is great fun. Very, very glamorous.
Very glamorous, yeah, very glamorous. So, how are things going at the moment then? Because it's we'll talk about the Outsider, I guess, in a few minutes. But because obviously that's the most contemporary thing in terms of what you're being in. But how's life in general? Pretty good. Okay.
Yeah, wonderful. Just. We're here. We're being very proactive with what's going on in the world at the moment, and we're isolating and having social distance. So we've got some nice food in, and it's good actually because there's loads of downtime with my kids, which is nice. So yeah, and it's been throwing down here for the last 3 days.
Right.
Seen a drain out there. I've got to clear that. It's getting blocked up. I'll have to clear that after the interview. Anyway.
Glamorous, like you say, glamorous.
Yeah.
So as I say, we'll talk about the act. Can we talk about the music first? Is that okay if we do the music bits first? Because obviously, that's kind of where you started out. I mean, was it kind of inevitable? Oh, we've got some music. Was it kind of inevitable that you were going to go to music?
Say again, sorry, about the music?
Yeah, was it inevitable that you were going to get into music because of your dad? Because obviously your dad was a famous, well-known musician and so forth. Was it kind of just like a standard thing that was going to happen?
Yeah, my father was a jazz drummer.
Yeah. And
my mother, who's passed away now, unfortunately, she was a amazing jazz singer, and literally, her standard was incredible. She was really a phenomenal jazz singer. And then she had my elder brother Gary, carried on working. Then she had me, and that sort of stifled the work for her because she was at home quite a lot. And in hindsight, I do think I listened to I've got like 2 recordings of her doing gigs, and She was a phenomenal talent, like truly world class. And both my father and my mother wanted me to go into the music. And my dad always said, you know, I want you to at least learn the piano, because you'll never go for wanting to eat if you can play the piano, because you can always earn. And certainly when I was a younger lad, there were times where I was playing piano in bars here and there, and I'd get some money, and I'd get, you know, and that would be it. And but really, more importantly, I grew up in South Manchester in Burnage, which is very colourful part of the world. I love it because I'm from there, and that's what I know. You know, it's a working class town, and it's fantastic. And however, the schooling options for when I was 11, they weren't amazing at the time, in sort of like the 1980, 81. And so very early on, at about 7 or 8, my father and mother were quite instrumental in saying to me, we've heard of this music school in Manchester, and we want you to be able to get a scholarship there, which was called Cheetham School of Music, which was a phenomenal school with an incredible level of musicianship with the kids there. And so I started piano. I started piano very early, at about 5 or 6, I think. Drums at about 4. And then by the time I was 11, we knew that the kids at Cheetham's were playing Messiaen, they were playing Prokofiev piano concertos, they were playing Mozart sonatas, and I wasn't quite there. They were geniuses, some of the kids, and but I could sing, and so my mother had a great idea of auditioning me as a chorister at the Manchester Cathedral, and I got in it as a chorister. And what Cheetham's do is they take you as a chorister, and then when your voice breaks, they re-audition you to see if you can still keep the scholarship. And I was at school, and I noticed the percussion department, and more importantly, the tune percussion department. It was good, but I was like, ooh, I think I've got a natural gravitate toward that. So I'm going to start really focusing on that, because my piano is a good standard, but it won't be one that'll get me a scholarship. And so that's what I did. And then at 13, my voice broke, and then I did my audition to stay in, and they gave me the scholarship, which was amazing. I absolutely loved that school, so I was very lucky. So they were incredibly instrumental in sort of protecting me from the other schools we might have ventured into, and perhaps the life would have gone in a very different direction. You know?
So I mean, obviously, then that then transformed into, you know, the career that you had and still having, because obviously music's still an important part of your life. Cause, I mean, there's am I alright to talk about a certain album that you're recording at the moment, or that you've just finished? Yeah. So what's the title going to be, or does it have a title yet?
It's called the Groove Spectrum.
The Groove Spectrum.
Yeah, and that came about when I was shooting Jamestown in Budapest. I think it was the 3rd season. I had a couple of days off here and there, and I used to be a perfectionist. I'm not anymore.
Used to be.
Well, I realised that it's a no-win situation, you know, because you never quite achieve perfectionism. You can only get let down. So now I'm a little bit more relaxed with that, but I still have that drive.
Yeah.
And on my days off, I'd either write, because I write scripts, or I would start creating music. And the Groove Spectrum project was it was going to be a concerto, really, an orchestral concerto. And then I listened to some of the movements, and I was these top line violin parts, you know, they make really good. Maybe I can make these into songs.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And so I did it all on Logic and on my keyboard whilst in Budapest. And then I got a list of people that I wanted to sing on the album, and I think all of them managed to commit to it, apart from 2, one of which was touring, and the other one, she just didn't turn up at the studio. But the lady that did the demo for me, Frankie Richards, did such an amazing job. I said, can we go in again and just re-record the vocal, and we'll put you on the album? She was like, sure, and she sounds great. So actually it worked out a treat.
Yeah. And do you want to say some of the other names on it? So you mentioned, was it Paul Weller is on?
Yeah, I phoned Paul because, of course, I started with Paul when I was 18, and that was my first gig. I was at the Guildhall. I got 4 scholarships when I was 18, and I chose the Guildhall because it was kind of quite relaxed there.
Yeah.
I went to the Royal Academy, Trinity, the Royal College, Guildhall, and the Royal Northern Five. But I thought the Guildhall was quite relaxed. I liked it. And also they had the drama there. And I had some kind of notion that you could probably jump in and out because I started liking film at that age as well.
Yeah.
I left 10 months into my first year. I went to the principal, who was a lovely gentleman called Ian Horsborough, and I was playing with the Jazz Warriors. It was an all-black band, jazz musicians in London, and I was the only white kid in the band. And I think that's caused some kind of like, ooh, look, and for the wrong reasons, whatever. But I was given an opportunity to play with these wonderful musicians. And I think it was famous at the time because Courtney Pine had just left, I think, before I joined. But in one night, I can't remember what we were playing, but I think it might have been Brixton Academy. I was on vibraphone, and Paul's drummer, Steve White, was in the audience. And he came up after and met me, and he said, "Do you play keyboards?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, do you play like anything else?" I said, "Well, I play percussion and drums, you know." He said, "Right, phone this number Monday." So I phoned the number on Monday, and they went, "Can you get down here to Solid Bond Studios in Marble Arch?" And I was in Catford. I was living in a hovel in Catford. It was like awful, this student place, you know. And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I went down to Solid Bond, and I walked in, and I met Paul, and then I recognised him. I didn't know the music very well because I was a real sort of music snob at the time. I was big on Marvin, Stevie Wonder, and all the jazz guys. But I clocked Paul, and I was like, "Oh wow!" And then his father came out, who was a great man called John, and Paul said, "Just come in the studio with me." And John said, "I'll speak to you after." So we went in the studio, and Paul started playing That's Entertainment on the piano, on the guitar, and so I started playing along with him.
Yeah.
Just I could hear it just about the changes, and then he went, "Right. Just 1 second," and he walked out, and he walked back in, and he said, "Go and speak to me, old man." And John said, "Basically, Paul wants you to do the gig. It's going to be a monkey a week, and we'll get you a load of nice clothes. We'll do Top of the Pops." And John was great, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was 500 quid a week at that age, you know. And that was the start. And then I played with him on Wildwood, which was great, and a track that he wrote for his son, Nat. And that's why I called him and said, "Listen, Paul, I've got this tune that I wrote for my daughter called Song for Sabrina, and you know, I'd love you to sing it." I really didn't know whether he would or not. And he went, "Yeah, send it, Maxie, send it." So I sent it him, and a lot of it was written, but the chorus lyric hook lines, some of the chorus lyric hook lines weren't written. And he went, "Can I have a go on the lyrics for the chorus?" And I was like, "Of course you can," because I think phenomenal lyricist. I think he's one of our best lyricists.
I would agree.
And he came back, and he went, "Let's give it a go, Maxie." And I think Paul might have been, no, he was the second. Lisa Stansfield was the first one I recorded, but Paul was the second. He was in LA, and he recorded, and he went, "No, do it again. And he also really wanted it right. It sounds amazing on the record. He sounds beautiful. So that was great. So we had Paul, Lisa, who was wonderful, who I've known for many years, Lisa Stansfield, Fred Durst, interesting on this track that we had that was, it's kind of a nod to the Beastie Boys in a way, but with big horns, big, you know, John Barry-esque horns. Robbie Williams, who's an old friend of mine, and I phoned Rob and just said, "It'd be crazy if you're not on the album, mate. You know, we've known each other 35 years. And he was like, "Yep, no problem." We did 2 takes with Rob, and that was it. I said, "I've got it." And he was like, "Really?" I said, yeah, you sound great. A wonderful UK singer, Tommy Blaze. And he's an artist in his own right, but you know him from the Strictly Come Dancing band. He's the vocalist that bangs out those tunes.
All right, okay.
He's such a great singer. And then my cousin, John Terrell, he's in a band called Smooth and Terrell. They're a fantastic band, Geordie band from Newcastle. Right. And I had this particular song that needed a really sort of mid-range, strong vocal. It's very Bond-esque, John Barry Bond-esque. And John came in and just smashed it. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, there's quite a few on there. Anthony Smith, a great American R&B singer. So yeah, so I was really pleased. I then am I going on?
No, go for it, mate. You just go for it. Yeah.
Sorry, and then I mixed it. I recorded and mixed it at the Village in Santa Monica, which was synonymous with the Steely Dan records. They recorded Asia in there, which is one of my favourite albums. And then a chap said to me, I'm working with a guy called Al Schmidt. I said, I know that name. He says, yeah, he's 21 Grammys. He's the best master mixer producer in the world.
Yeah.
I said, these are produced. I said, but do you think he'll mix them? And he said, well, you could always try and set up a coffee. So I travelled along to Capitol Records and walked in and met this gentleman, and he was one of the loveliest men I've ever met. Very humble, very tenacious, very just wonderful man. And he said, let's hear some of the tracks. So I played him some, and he said, this is great. I'm going to take the rest home over the weekend. I'll call you Monday. I said, okay. Meanwhile, I'm going, Al Schmidt, Wikipedia. Oh, my God. This record. Oh, that record. Oh, and they're all my favourite records that he's produced. And then he posted something there. I went back in, and he called me, and he said, I love the album. I'd love to mix it. I was like, great. And I went back into Capitol, and I said, how's the year been for you? You know, he said, great. I said, have you had any, what's your favourite projects been? He said, well, Paul was in, which was great. McCartney, I went, okay. And Bob Dylan, that was a beautiful record. I said, oh, Diana Clark, like, oh my God. So he mixed it, and then I went to Atlanta to start shooting The Outsider, which we'll talk about. And then he said, who have you thought about mastering the album? And at that, I didn't even think mastering. I was like, well, it's mixed. It sounds great. And I said, who do you suggest? And he suggested a guy, Eric Boulangerie, who mixes out of the Sony lot at the in the Sony lot there, in one of those old sort of cinematic rooms. You review the film where you see the old guys with cigars. And he was masterful, man. He said, here's Al's mix. He said, there's the master, boom, boom. And I didn't realise how much mastering can do to a record, to pop everything in. So I'm really proud of it. I'm trying to look for a deal at the moment. I don't know where to knock it out. And I'm going to wait, and I'm going to be patient with it. I'm not just going to, try and get it out as quick as possible. I'm going to try and find the right home for it. So there you go.
So maybe get a sneak preview maybe sometime, I don't know.
I'll send you boys something. No problem. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Zach's eyes light up when you mentioned Fred Durst for a start anyway, so kind of like, big fans back in the day of that, so,
Fred was great. Fred's got a great ear, and he came in and he did a great job, and very, 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 he's a natural musician. He's got a lot to him,
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you had the, going back a wee bit, you had, the music thing, you performed all around the world, you had, a good career going. So why the sort of, because it feels, looking at the stuff, it feels like, I know you said you had an interest in acting, but it feels like quite a sudden change, back in, whenever it would be, the 80s or whenever, into wanting to go into like an acting career. So what was it kind of like a specific moment, or was it something that built up kind of over time? Because I'm assuming the music career would have been quite lucrative and good living. So why the change? Why then?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a drastic change, but I think that if you have some kind of journey that you feel like you're going on, you absolutely owe it to yourself to pursue that path. You must. Whether you fail or not, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't pursue. And I had the niggling of acting. I was a big film buff. I collected videos, and I had like hundreds of old videos.
We'll explain to the kids what videos are, and once.
Yeah. But from the classics, from the early Hitchcock stuff, and then the Jimmy Cagney, Bogart, and because my dad was a huge film buff, and my dad, of course, was a impersonator, and he used to. His impressions were all of Cagney, Bogart, Jimmy Stewart, Kirk Douglas, Burt Lancaster. So I was into it all, and yes, things were going well musically. We did the MTV Awards in Berlin with George Michael. I think it was '94, And he was at the Brandenburg Gate, and he opened the show with Freedom, and we finished with that wonderful song that he wrote, Jesus to a Child. And then I was back in Whitfield Street Studios in London doing George Benson's album with Bluey from Incognito, who's, by the way, a wonderful, wonderful man. You know, when I couldn't rub two coins together, he made sure I was working in the studio, and he got me my wages. He's a terrific man, and he's still doing it now. He's great. So, yeah, it was lucrative, and I was working with George, and my favourite drummer, Steve Gadd, came in, and it was just amazing. But one weekend I went up to Manchester to see my father and mother. Yeah, she was still alive then. And my dad said, I've got a great film. Come on, pop your tockers here and sit down and watch this. I said, okay. And it was Raging Bull. And I started watching it, and I started hearing them talk musically. I'm like, something went on in my head, and I'm obsessing on this film. And at the end, I had real empathy for De Niro's character, for Jake LaMotta. Really was an animal. And I went, I took myself out of it a bit, and I went, that's an incredible thing for an actor to be able to pull that out of a viewer, to show that vulnerability within the context of that animal that he's portraying. I say that now because I think Jake's passed away, but he was quite a fearsome man.
He was. I mean, I share your love of that film. I mean, I'm a big De Niro fan. I went to see Raging Bull years ago at the cinema. It was being re-released about sort of 10, 15 years ago, and it was an afternoon show, and I was by myself. I went in and I had the whole cinema to myself, and it was just the music at the beginning when it's the slow motion in the ring and all that stuff. But he wasn't a particularly nice person, was he, Jake LaMotta? But he did make him really...
he was horrific. He was horrific. He wasn't a nice guy. And that's what I took from it. I went, wow, he's done an incredible job there, because I have masses of empathy for him. And I went, that's a tall order, man, and that's interesting. And I went, that's a big, big job. Okay, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to try and get in the actor's studio. I'm going to find a coach from there, and I'm just going to do that right now. And I told my dad, and he went, I said, I want to go to New York because I love the New York method. I love all the actors, my favourite actors, mostly studied under Strasberg. Yeah. And I went, that's what I want to go for. And he went, okay. And he was totally behind it.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And when we were playing with George Michael, when we opened with that Freedom track, we had like 5 or 6 supermodels come out onto the stage like that. Christy Turlington, Naomi, Emma Solberg, I can't remember the rest, Linda, I think. And there was a young lady called Lorraine Pascal. And she had known of one of the coaches that De Niro had hired to work on A Bronx Tale with the young chap who was the lead in that. Yeah. And she's a lady called Sheila Gray. And she's a teacher in New York, and I got a number, and I called her from Levenshulme. I was in Levy in South Manchester, and I didn't know whether I could get in to meet her. Yeah. And I said, "Oh, I'm doing theatre in New York." I was lying, complete lie. And I said, "And I'd love to see you maybe like Thursday for a sort of session." And she was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll put you in on Thursday. What's the show?" And I'm like, "Oh God." The Seagull, I've no idea where that came from. Chekhov. And she went, brilliant, which theatre? And I went, let's go. I went, I can't hear Sheila. I'll see you Thursday. That was Monday in Levy. I was in Levenshulme. I flew out on Thursday, and I spent 10 weeks at the Paramount Hotel. I spent all my money that I'd saved, and I did coaching with her and classes every day, 6 days a week, for those 10 days. And I tell you what, I thought I knew a little bit about acting, and I didn't have a clue. And she's given me tools, which, that was 94, so 26 years ago, some of which we used on The Outsider. We used some stuff for that, and she's amazing, man, absolutely amazing, man. So that was the start. And I came back to the UK, and I was very lucky. In 97, I got landed the lead role in History of Tom Jones, a wonderful script, 6 parts of the BBC, and I was dropped in it. I didn't know what I was doing, but I had the wonderful Brian Blessed look
Oh
after
man,
me
yeah.
through the whole show. He was very protective of me.
Yeah.
Hey, you remind me of a young Ken Branagh. You remind me of a Ken Branagh. That's what he used to say. From the eyes up, sugar. From the eyes up. And he liked me, and I love Brian. He's a very interesting, wonderful man.
I mean, so because I mean, when we found out you were going to come on the show a couple of weeks ago now, I think, wasn't it? The amount of people that have said to me and Zach about, oh God, Max Beesley, great, it's all the picture, and so yeah. I mean, it's been then it was ask him about this, ask him about that. I mean, ask him about Suits, or ask him about Mad Dogs, or ask him. I mean, it's a body of work that that decision you made back in 90 odd whatever. It's not been a bad one, has it? Really, to be honest. What in terms of the work that you've done? What's the proudest thing that you would say that you've done? What's the thing that you're proudest of, whether or not it's well known or not, in terms of acting?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I love all the jobs, but I've always been very, very, very proud of Bodies. I think Bodies was, and I'm just looking at this. I'm looking at this now from a. I think that if you know your tool and you can go to work and you can do the job, and you prep, and my dad calls it the 5 Ps. Preparation prevents poor performance. I say preparation prevents piss poor performance, but he tells me off. But if you can go to work, you're literally just waiting for good material.
Yeah.
And if there's good material, people go, oh, they're really good in that. If it's bad material, nobody ever goes, bad writing. They go, ooh, he's not doing well.
Yeah.
And Bodies, for me, I think was so well written and so well crafted by Mercurio. I think he did such an amazing job on it that it just everything worked on that show. And it was one of those gigs that comes along like once every 10, 15 years. So I really loved that. Mad Dogs was, for different reasons, a phenomenal job, because the four of us, the four boys, we adore each other and we're lifelong friends.
Yeah,
You know what? That really came across in the show.
I think so, and I think well, they remade it here in America, and I think one of the reasons why perhaps it wasn't working quite the same as the UK version is because I don't think the boys knew each other, and some of us knew each other very well. John and I had known each other for many years, and Phil I'd just met, Mark I'd known, and we'd all worked with each other indirectly. John and Phil, obviously, Life on Mars and a few other things. Mark and I on Hustle. But when we got on that gig, it just gelled beautifully, man. So that was one. The Outsider, as short and sweet as it was just. I'm proud of it because it was a tough gig from on paper, trying to craft that character. But you've got to go to work and you've just got to do what you need to do, and you're a Manchester kid and you've all of a sudden got to be a Tennessee dope dealer. But it's no big stretch, really, to be honest with you. If I'm being perfectly honest, it's just part of the gig, man. And but when you watch it and you go, okay, yeah, I'm glad you get away with it. One's pleased, but you have to put a lot of work in. You do have to prep. You cannot walk on the set not knowing your business. You've got to know your lines, your choices, your dialect, where you're going, and most importantly, you've got to listen. That's what it's all about, listening to the other actors,
So obviously, you say you're a method actor, and do you kind of then take it home with you? Do you find it difficult to forget, what you've done during the, particularly if you're playing somebody who's maybe not particularly nice, as it were? I mean, can you leave it behind when you go home?
Well, you have to. That's one of the things that Sheila teaches you. But when I first started out, I did a movie called The Last Minute with Stephen Norrington, who directed the Blade trilogy, and then he directed League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And I was a heroin addict in it, and at the time, my mother was deteriorating in hospital, and I was using some very personal choices for that. And I think I spent most of the weekends in St. Martin's Lane with all the hats on, the gear. I was a dope head, I was a H addict. I used to hang out with the guys sleeping rough there in St. Martin's Lane and really dove into that. And I think it was a combination of going too deep with it and also the stress of my mother deteriorating, but I couldn't shake it at night, and I think I got a little bit ill actually. It wasn't great, and I spoke to Sheila about it, and one of the things she teaches, the most important thing with, there's a miscommunication, misunderstanding about method acting. For me, this is just me, but it's just sense memory, personalization, and making what you're reading on the page, how you can personalize that and make it a part of perhaps your history. Yeah. So I think that the more varied life you have, and mine's been incredibly varied, I've been very lucky in that respect, the more chance you've got of being able to draw on specific things and make the work truthful. Yeah. Most importantly is, cut, that's a wrap, it's gone. Yeah. You got to move. Otherwise, you can go absolutely nuts. Yeah. I do that. And you jump in and out of whether you're going to stick in with the dialect or not. And I think if you do enough prep on the work you're doing, I think it's a good idea not to, actually, because you can start learning mistakes when you're free forming with people in between takes. I think just nail the work and then boom. How you doing?
Yeah. Can you watch yourself? Go on.
Answer it.
So Zach, sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to ask the same thing. We've spoke to Mark and Newell, and they said that at times they struggle to watch themselves back. Are you the same, or are you happy to?
Well, Yule said, I saw what Yule said, and I'm kind of the same. I do like seeing playback just once. I just like having a little look and going, okay. But recently, and actually on that job, I just went, I didn't. And when it was on, I was like, yeah, this is great. The story's great, and I hope it's believable. And you have a look at it, and I don't mind it. I don't mind watching it at all. It's funny when there's interviews, and my dad might say, this is great, kid, and put something on like that, I get a bit awkward, and it's a bit of an oxymoron, because many people would probably say, who've met me, that he's quite outgoing, but actually, yeah, I'm quite shy, believe it or not, and I get a bit weird with praise, but I'm learning to say thanks, nice one, hey, genuinely.
What about? So I asked you about your particular favourite. Can I just say mine in terms of what you've done? The Outsider, I think, is up there. Certainly, probably in the work that you've done in the series itself. I was a big fan of Survivors back in the day, which was, when was that? 2006, 7?
2 and 7, yeah.
Why the hell did that? I mean, it had 2 series. First series was pretty good. Second series, I thought it hit its straps. I was surprised back at the time that it didn't get a 3rd series, it's quite topical, I suppose, now, because it's about the world's being wiped out, or at least populations being wiped out by a virus and that sort of thing. It's set in the UK, wasn't it? It was set over here. But I mean, what were your thoughts on that? And were you surprised it wasn't ever taken up for a 3rd series?
I was really disappointed. Yeah. I loved that show, and in particular, I loved that character, Tom Price. I loved that character, and again, the research for that, he was a jailbird, and so getting into all of that and learning so much about that world, and then being able to say to the director, for instance, he's teabagging him. Can we teabag him? And he's like, what? And saying, well, this is what happens if you really want to do some damage. So we need to get a retractable, and do you want to shoot it? And it's like all of a sudden it becomes a different scene, and it's fantastic, and I loved it, and I loved the people that I worked with on that show. And yeah, when we got a second series, I remember that there were, I think, if I'm correct, there were 3 clashes with some huge shows. I remember what one of them was. One of them was a tribute to the beautiful Princess Di, I think. And I'm a numbers guy. I'm a freak. I do look at numbers, and I saw the drop, and I was like, oh gosh. And then I think, I'm not sure, I can't be 100% sure, but I think there might have been a new commissioner coming at the BBC. I can't remember, and I think that, and it's inevitable, and it's not a bad thing. I think that, and I'd probably be the same, when you're coming into a position, and things run for 2 or 3 years. You want to incorporate your ideas into what should be put out, what sort of drama should be put out there, and you want to be inventive and create new materials. But I was disappointed that it didn't go for the third, because I mean it literally ends with Tom Price, my character, on the plane.
On the plane, scalping. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there could have been a great third season.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fans. I see a lot of Survivors fans on social media saying,
yeah.
"What happened, man? Why isn't it back?" And believe me, I thought the same at the time. I was counting to pay my bills.
What do you think about the current state of TV at the moment? Because it appears to be, you know, in some areas, you know, with Netflix and everything else, kind of, you know, Zach and I have talked before about it being a bit of a golden age for, you know, a number of things, Sopranos, Breaking Bad, you know, all that stuff. What's your own opinion about the state of TV and the opportunities for people like yourself these days, and, you know, all that stuff?
Well, it's, again, double-edged sword for me. I think that the original content that's being made now and the resources that we get is incredible.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic for the industry. I think that, you know, there was a time, but at the same time, there's a lot of content being pushed out that isn't quite good enough in my view. But I think it's amazing, and I think for actors, producers, and writers, it is a golden age. It's an age where you don't just have the 4 channels in the UK, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, you can, and now the smaller, not smaller, but the newer to the business. You know, the Apple TV, the Hulu. The actors that have some weight, both here and in the UK, are going, great, let's get it made and let's get it out. I don't care if it's not mainstream this or this incredibly prestigious cable network. Let's just go. And I think that certainly in the UK, I must say, you know, when I think Sky had The Take, that was their first original drama, and I think Mad Dogs was the next one. And Phil, Mark, and I, and John were all doing pretty good leads in big shows. Yeah. And I think it shifted you know, a lot of our friends, for instance, were like, yeah, we're going to do something for Sky. What about this? And you know, and so that became a play there. I'm not saying that our show was responsible for that by any means of the way, but it was that momentum going toward that.
Yeah.
And here in the States, you know, the quality of some of the shows is incredible, and the outlets you can get them from now. And only this week, I mean, I had like probably 4 different projects, all different studios and cables, all Hulu, Apple, HBO, and Showtime. And you go in, these are all really very well written. These are very good, you know. And in the UK as well, I'm streaming stuff from the UK now, because I also want to see what's happening there, because, you know, I love working back at home, and I think there's some notion that when British actors come over here, that they're shunning their roots or whatever, but it's far from the truth. You know, I think we make some of the best TV in the world as well in the UK.
Yeah.
The Americans certainly think so as well. There's an air of, if you're a Brit and you walk in a room, there's an immediate respect that they don't have for some American actors.
You know, I was going to ask you about that, because obviously yourself in The Outsider, and Paddy Considine as well was in The Outsider as well. You can't watch an American program rarely without ever seeing a British actor in there. Is that a welcoming thing then? There isn't kind of like an attitude of, you know, from the Americans that, oh, here's another Brit coming to steal our jobs. Is it kind of a very welcoming sort of thing?
I think the Americans have always been on point. They watch, they really do watch what's happening in the UK. They also watch happening in the Australian market with their actors and writers and producers, and I think they boom, let's go. I mean, Paddy's a wonderful, I always call him a quadruple threat, Paddy, because he's a terrific writer, director, actor, and he's a songwriter and frontman in his band, you know, and his lyrics, by the way, are fantastic. But so he had that, and I think Bateman wanted him in the show, and just saw the classiness of him, and you needed somebody that had theatre background. And I think a lot of it's the theatre background. I think that's why the Americans are enamoured with some British actors. Yeah. And you needed somebody to dance those 2 roles, of which Paddy does, and I think he does it brilliantly, you know. And so, by the way, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Let's go. And then and then if you've done the work and you're at a place where you really dig the work, you take it seriously and you prepare. As long as you prepare and you know what's going down, then you really should be able to be presented with anything and just go, yeah, I think I can do that. And I don't mean that to sound big-headed or anything. I just mean it as a jobbing guy. You do it constantly, again and again and again and again, and whatever comes to you, you go. You kind of know whether it's for you or not.
Yeah.
And so it's great. It's good for us at the moment. I do miss working back at home a little bit. I've got to say, recently as well, with the dramas that I've seen coming out of the UK, I think they're making great original content. And I do like those sausage sandwiches in the pissing down rain in the morning. It's a bit weird, isn't it?
Is it red sauce or brown?
Both, actually.
At the same time?
That's just wrong. My man, that's just wrong. Listen, no. No both.
Brown sauce if I was in Levy at me folks' house there, and red sauce if I was with my mum in Burnage.
No, yeah, at least not at the same time then. That'd be sick. That's sick and wrong, mate. That's sick and wrong.
Double hit. Oh my word.
I didn't watch Suits. Zack is a big fan of Suits. I never caught it when you were in it. I know Zack wanted to talk to you very quickly about Suits. You sent me the thing today, Zack, didn't you? Your character's entrance.
The entrance.
Yeah. So when Stephen Huntley comes gets out of the taxi, isn't it? I think, and then up through that man.
He pulls up in an Aston Martin.
Is it Aston Martin? Is that the one? Oh, that's Aston Martin. That's the one. Yeah.
My God, no, it's Martin.
It's a big entrance, though. It's that is how you make it.
Suits is kind of famous for its like suave and sophisticated feel.
Yeah.
And I think your entrance was probably about as cool as it gets.
I was very lucky to have that car and that suit and those camera operators that day because they made it look really cool. It was great. No, that was 2013, I want to say, in Toronto, and funnily enough, that the casting lady of that had been a fan of Survivors actually, and she got me in and said, "Look, we want it's like 2 eps, might be more, but we need a British version of Harvey Specter, right? Is it?
I think so. Yeah.
Played by Gabriel Mack, and I was like, "What? Let me see this kid. Who is this kid?" And I get him up. I'm like, "Oh, you've got the wrong guy because Gabriel's a supermodel. He's really." And I said, "You're gonna have to put me in some nice threads for me to get away with that because he is cool." And anyway, I did the audition, and then I met Aaron, of course, the writer, who was lovely, and then it ended up being 3, then 4, then 5, I think 6 episodes. I can't remember that I ended up doing, but yeah, it was a terrific gig. But it was a baptism of fire because on those shows which are, you know, the script led, very script led. There's no like we've been doing Mad Dogs, and on Mad Dogs by the 2nd, 3rd season, Chris, our writer, was so wonderful. He'd swing if we were knocking it about a little bit between us, dialogue, and it worked. He'd leave it. If it didn't work, he'd say no. Stick with the script. Stick with the text. But we got in a place where we all like to just knock it about a little bit, and then I flew over to Toronto for that, and you've literally got, you know, the 3 or 4 writers on set, on book, bang, and you've got to be on every word. And I think the first scene was with Gabriel in his office, in his domain, and it was like a 3.5 page, and I was like, oh wow. And so it was good though, because it makes you sharpen those tools again, you know. But I enjoyed that gig a lot. It was a lot of fun.
Is it difficult to come into a series like that? I know Zack we were talking about this earlier on about, you know, when it's been quite established. Is it a lot of pressure on you as an actor to come in where you've got people that are quite probably tight, you know, by that point?
100%. Yeah, it is difficult to jump in on something like that. And one of the things you take away from that is if you're established on the first season of something that's going for a few years, you're really aware of when there are new actors coming in. And certainly, like I remember now on Jamestown, we had such a a beautiful cast on that. I mean, really, like, you know, a terrific group of people, and we're all, you know, WhatsApping, and to this day, you know, the second season they introduced some characters, and the third season some more, and Fleming and I, Jason, we were like, let's make sure they're comfortable and they're rocking and rolling, and we'd be like, you know, it's a great cast, the crew are amazing. It's just going to be fun. Give us a shout if you need anything. And so you make, you know, inroads like that with people, because it is pressure.
Yeah.
And ironically, you know, if you're coming in for 1 or 2 scenes, it's more pressure than if you're in for, you know, 6 or 7 massive, huge scenes over the first week. You prefer to be dropped in and have to do the work. It's, you know, but yeah, it is difficult. But you've just got to rely on your prep and your choices, and not have. The bigger dynamic here is that it brings into question this thing of, you know, self-image, and it's a big old thing, that. And I think that when you get older, you start shedding that skin. You're not as concerned, and one shouldn't be concerned about what people think of you, you know. And but unfortunately, you know, when you're younger, you do. And I think that's one of the reasons why auditions are horrible for a lot of actors, and certainly they used to be for me. I hated auditions.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, because your self-image is like, what are they going to think? And I think that without being cavalier about it, you've got to let that go and just go, here it is. We can dance. If not, thanks for your time. You know what I mean?
Let's talk about The Outsider, because obviously, was that a similar sort of thing then to Suits? Did you come into it quite, because obviously your character appears quite late in it's about episode 7, I think you come into it, 8. Was it filmed in that kind of linear style, or were you there from the beginning and then filmed your parts?
No, I'd auditioned for another show for the casting director, Alexa Fogel, who's just, and one of Alexa's favourite shows was Survivors, ironically.
Really?
Again.
Cool.
So it did leave a mark, and Menchaca, funnily enough, he liked it as well. And I'll tell you about that, the first day read through. It was so wonderful. And there's an example of somebody wanting to welcome you and be lovely and put you at ease. But Alexa called me for another show, which I really wanted to do, which was also shooting Atlanta. And she called and said there was another kid involved, and I was like, oh God, I really want to do it. And then they said, you know, Jason likes this other chap for it. And I was like, okay, cool. Gutted, obviously. And then because Jason was involved in the other show as well, and she said, but we want you to come in on this. And I actually read for another character, and then said no, they're going with another guy. And I was like, oh gosh, it's such a great cast. And I knew Richard Price was, and I knew Lahane from Mystic River, and I was like, oh, these scripts sound amazing, you know. And that's what you want. You want good writing. And then she called back and went, will you come in again? There's another role. I said, yeah, okay. And it was the Seal Bolton role. And there was like probably 2 small scenes. One of them, actually, they used one of Jack Hoskins' scene in the bar where he has a go at the guy when he kicks him in the lever. And then something else, just to show a bit of range, I think, in the writing. Anyway, she called back and they said, yeah, we would like you to come, and we're going to arrange a call with the producer and with Richard Price. They want to talk through things. And I was like, okay, great. And genuinely at that point, I thought, I knew it was 3 eps, but I thought it was like 1 scene here, 1 scene there. That was it. Because we'd only auditioned 2 scenes. And Richard Price got on the phone, and he's a really, really interesting chap. He's on like bang, 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 you know. And he's talking to me about this, and then the character does this, and da 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 da, and I'm going, okay. And then and then that's episode 8, and I'm going, that's 30 minutes on episode 8. And he said, 9's incredible. This is what happens. Da da da. And I said, sorry, Richard, I haven't got any scripts. I'm flying out in a week. It sounds a bit more involved than I actually thought. He's like, you haven't got any scripts? What the? Get him scripts. The scripts came, and I'm looking at reading it, going, oh wow, this is great. I love this character. And then I'm going, oh God, there's more. Oh dear. And then I got home, and I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. I can't wait. And then there's one scene was about 7 pages or 8 pages, and I'm going, I better phone my dialect coach immediately before I come. No, I was just pleased that it was something substantial that I could try to go to work with. And yeah, I did a couple of days with Michael Buster, who's my coach out here on the dialect. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
I asked him, I said, can I just see a earlier scene with Paddy? And they sent me Paddy's scene with Ben at the bar in the strip joint, just have a listen to see where we were, because he's been away from the town and we haven't, so we could be a little stronger if we wanted, or we could mold it a little bit. And that was it. And then I got out there, and you know what happened? It's a funny story. It's not that funny.
Go on, go for
it. So I get to Atlanta on the Wednesday, and I've got makeup on Monday, and I'm shooting on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And they know this now, so it's fine to tell the story. But I was really pleased. There was a read-through Thursday morning, and that's where Mark was so lovely and just so welcoming. And Yule as well. Yule came up after the read-through and was very, very complimentary, and he said some lovely things. And it makes one just relax a little bit, because it's on you, there's no doubt about it. You're coming in mid-season with a wonderful cast of actors and a terrific crew and some of the best writers in the business, And we did the read-through. I saw Ben. I said hello. I've known him for like 15 years on and off, and he didn't recognise me at first. I said, dialect, mate. It's a dialect through me. He said, 15 years, kid. Nah, what? Let's look him up, fine. And he's looking. We're practically married, brother. Anyway, that was that. And then I went back to the hotel, and I thought, I'm going to go out for a bite to eat. And as I'm walking up the main road, I see these little birds, these bike things.
Oh, yeah.
Scooters, but they're electric. And I'm like, oh, great. I'll zip up to the restaurant on one of them. So I put my card in, boom, off I go, up to the restaurant, had a lovely meal. And then I thought, I'll get back early, I'll get a nice sleep, and then get on the work tomorrow morning. And I get on it, and ding, ding, ding. And I look down and I go, wow, 19 miles per bang. And I went head first over the bike into a concrete slab. I was concussed for a few seconds. I think I can't remember, but I was on the floor and I was in trouble. I'd whacked my head open. And unfortunately, when I was a kid, I remember getting baseball batted once, and also cricket batted once in the face, and that hurt. But this was horrific pain. It was a concrete slab going at 20 in your face, basically. And these girls came over and they're like, "Oh my God!" And I was like, "What? Your face, man?" And I was like, "Oh no!" So to a cop, and he went, "Man, you're in trouble, man." And I was like, "Come out." He said, "I'm getting you an ambulance." He called the ambulance. I'm in the hospital. I'm like, I'm 4 days away from a terrific show. I've blown it. I can't believe it. They're not going to be able to shoot me. It was horrific. I phoned my agent and I said, "I'm in trouble here, man. I need some advice on the facial stuff. Let's get some cortisone. Let's get it all sorted." And he went, "Max, have you been in a bar fight?" And no, what are you talking about?
Who would back up the fact that they're being on a scooter? I mean, a little.
So anyway, I had the next 4 days. I was on ice. I was on collagen drinks. I was putting all sorts of stuff to get it better. And I went into makeup Monday morning, and they went, "Oh." Hey, and I went, and it, by the way, it was a lot better. And they, "We'll be back in a minute." Called the producers, and the producers said, "We want to see the face." And they saw it and they went, "Nah, it's fine. It's going to be just cover that, and then you'll be good to go." But it was awful, man. I got to tell you. coffees, brother. That's why I'm rabbiting so much.
No, man, it's great. No, I mean, to be honest, I was just thinking it's not exactly a James Dean sort of death crash, is it? Just the scooter and, you know, it's
a little scooter, and I ate a concrete slab. Awful.
Talk about the show. Did anybody ever call you a peach on the show? I've been asked to ask you.
No, I gotta tell you, you're a peach. It's you.
You, yeah. I messaged him.
We gotta go for dinner. You're such a peach. It's like he sounds like Walken, and then we ask him to do Chris Walken. It's incredible.
Well, you know, it's funny you said that because the other night I said, look, we're gonna have Max on the show. I messaged Yul and I said, look, we're going to have Max on the show. Give me a couple of questions for him. So the first one was about calling you a peach. The second one was, he said, who's what Christopher Walken, or the best Christopher Walken impression that you know? Obviously, it's him that does Chris Walken. So that was a question that he was asking.
Yeah, so I know a few that do it. I've seen a few people do it. And I've got to say, I mean, I thought I was strong with Chris Walken until I heard Yul's. And then... Sam Rockwell is one of Yule's really close friends, and Sam was out doing the Ballad of Richard Jewell in Atlanta. By the way, what a beautiful, beautiful guy, man. Like, we went out for dinner with him, and he just spent an hour talking to Menchaca about his work, Jeremy Bob, talking about their work and saying, like, you're great in this, and he just won an Oscar, man. And I just went, there's a classy act. Yule cites him as the best, but I think Yule's got the best Walken. It's fantastic what he comes up with. It's so funny, man. He's great in it.
We also had a question from Menchaca, from Mark Menchaca. I messaged Mark and he gave me a question as well. Basically, he said he asked me to ask you what's your best impression. Your best impression.
Oh, my best impression. Well, I think it's.
Now he said this particular person, and I think you might even guess who he actually said.
I think it's a TV presenter here in America that some people know from a show called Dateline, and his name is Keith Morrison. What did he say? He
said actually he thinks your best impression is the one that you do of him, the way that he talks. He said you do a great.
No, Mark, do you want to go for a coffee?
Yeah.
That's it, that's Mark. That's awesome. No, he's a diamond. I make him laugh. He's funny. No, I don't think my best impression is Mark. I think it's a fella called Keith Morrison. Does this Dateline show, and Bill Camp and I we'd trade Keith Morrison stories, because both Bill and I love Dateline, Forensic Files, all those shows. And Bill's actually now the narrator on Forensic Files. And I'm like, what a great gig, man. You get to watch all those things, you know. But yeah, no, my Mark, I need to work on my Mark. I need to spend more time with him.
I think Mark did one, Zach, didn't he do Jason Bateman when he was talking to us?
Good.
He nailed Jason Bateman. It was spot on.
That's really excellent. Excellent.
It's real. I mean, have you had a lot of feedback in terms of the Outsiders? Because as I say, it's been a big hit. I think the ratings have been big for HBO.
Yeah, they got over 9 million, which is big for them.
Yeah. And, what about the sort of like, you know, people's reaction to you? I mean, have you had more than for this show than maybe you've had for others? You know, with the impact that this show's had.
It's been absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
And it's opened some different doors that perhaps people don't quite equate to your work, because it's, you know, it's a different deal, it's a different gig, and we've had some lovely stuff coming into my manager and agent, you know, and it's nice when you see that, and it's funny because when you were in some of the jobs that you do, it is weird, isn't it, that you do these gigs over the years and you keep doing them, and they build up, and then you do something that pops a little bit, and then people go, oh yeah, oh no, that was that show, and it was, but and then your body of work looks like some substance there, but you do need those jobs that that have both class and viewers, and I think that this has been wonderful. I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to have been a part of the show, and grateful to Alexa Fogel. She's been amazing to me, and she's had me in for all sorts over the years, and she's always said, I'm going to find the right thing for you, and this was great. And moving forward, there's a couple of things that might pan out actually over the next few weeks, which are just great. Yeah. And this has definitely helped. It's helped. I think it's just about reinventing the cog, showing that you're pliable, showing you can attack each different thing with the same gusto as you do the previous, and you're reinventing the wheel constantly. And I think that's what it's about, the acting for me. My wife said to me, you're going to be a great character actor. And I went, whoa, what? And she said, you're not a leading man anymore. You're an older guy. And I was like, I'm fine with that, man. As long as I work, I don't mind. I'm all right with that, Especially when it's a crew like that.
Yeah.
You'll, Manchaka, Jeremy, Bill, and Paddy. One of the things that is so wonderful about this business is that you do come away. I've always said you definitely come away from a job with at least one very special person that you're going to have in your life, and that happened on Jamestown. We got on great, Mad Dogs, and then Paddy and I are incredibly close now, and that's an amazing relationship that came from. I mean, it's weird. I feel like I've known him all my life, and we only met last June. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Menchaca's the same. Yule's the same. These are cats that I know that they're going to be in my life, for a long time, and so that's a great bonus, isn't it?
Yeah,
when you go into work, you can find something like that,
Especially when you've got a kind of wide body of work, as you've got. It must be. I've often thought, someone like yourself, it must be weird when you'll have particular people that have liked particular things of yours. So you probably get somebody coming up to you, I love Mad Dogs, or I love Suits, or whatever. And it's something that you've done maybe, 10, 15 years ago. It must be difficult for, to appreciate sometimes, I think, maybe how much one particular thing can mean to so many different people. It must be a weird thing.
Yeah, but not really, because I'm the same. I watch shows and I love. Look, this is the ultimate thing, isn't it? We're not brain surgeons. We're not heart doctors. We're not saving lives actors. Man, we're just creating something that can be an escapism for people in this world. And it's not perfect nirvana. We're just giving someone escapism. And I remember as a child, Will Hay, Laurel and Hardy, Harold Lloyd. That was my escapism when times were a little bit tough. And so it's a great thing that you can put that up on a platform for people to just go, I'm just going to escape for a little bit. Yeah. And we want to do really contentious, we want to do heavy duty, multifaceted work. Hotel Babylon was one of the jobs that was light fare that millions of people loved, and people used to just love it and just go, I just want to switch off. This is great fodder for that. Yeah. It was like, I remember Tamsin used to call it classy bubblegum, and she was right. It was like that sweet tasting souffle or whatever. And I have it the same. I will spend evenings here where I watched Kirby the other night, Kirby Enthusiasm, and I've met one of the actors off that, and I'm just like, man, I just love the work so much. You know what I mean? So it is weird, but I do understand how specific things can give people have an impactful deal on them, because it's an escapism for them, as it is for me.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few questions at the end, because basically we had a little quiz with Yul. What did you call it, Zach?
You'll never guess.
You'll never guess. It was brilliant. And then we had one with Mark. Yul was pretty poor. It's got to be said. He didn't really know much about himself. Mark was okay, wasn't he? He got one or two things, but again, a little bit, So we've got a few for you, and we've called it, and I think this is genius. We've called this "Will Max Get the Max?" So,
Very good.
I was proud of that. I came up with that all by myself.
It's okay.
It's not well. Zach came up with the "you'll never guess," and he thinks that's probably But anyway, okay. So we've got a few questions. See how much you know. Maybe one or two of these might be easy. I don't know. But there's we'll see how it goes. Right, easy one to start with. So in Survivors, what we've talked about, your character was serving a long prison sentence when the virus struck. What was the prison that your character was in?
Oh God.
Not a good start, mate. Not a good start.
Oh God.
What was the name of the prison?
It was Strangeways, but it was no.
No. Wandsworth, mate. Wandsworth prison.
Wandsworth Nick. Oh, yeah, okay.
Do you want to do one, Zach?
Oh, you'll have to do them because you never sent me the 4 questions.
Did I not send you? I'll do them. I'll do them. So you performed with Robbie Williams at Nebworth back in 2003. How many people attended the 3 concerts altogether?
The 3 concerts altogether, approximately 390,000.
I've got 3. I know, right?
I think it was 135,000 a night.
Something like that. Yeah. And did you all do all 3 nights?
I did the whole
Yeah.
year, the tour for all year.
All right, okay, cool. So I've got 375, but we'll go with your 390 because that's probably about right. So that's one you've got. Okay. In the UK original version of Mad Dogs, your character was called Woody, as you probably know. What was the name of the equivalent character in the US version? So your character in the US, what was his name?
Oh, Michael Imperioli played him, who I love.
He did.
Sopranos. Not Quinn. No, not Quinn. Quinn's Phil. I don't know. Go on.
Poor mate.
Did it begin with J?
No. Neil. Lex. Called Lex. Lex.
No idea.
In The Outsiders, or The Outsider, I should say, what's the name of the chicken restaurant that your brother goes to in episode 9?
Okay, let me just remember the dialogue from that scene.
You talk about it. You mention it. You gave him the idea.
Yeah,
Is it not the best chicken place in the world or something?
Yeah, best chicken place for 200 miles.
That was on.
Yeah.
Heaven Chicken. Is that right?
It's Highway Heaven.
Oh, I thought it was Heaven Chicken.
Highway
Heaven.
Close. Okay.
Can I try some of that heavenly chicken recipe? Heaven, not heavenly.
Highway, yeah.
Highway Heaven.
Okay, in 1992, Leeds United famously beat Man United to the First Division title. By how many points did Man United hilariously lose by?
2.
4.
Oh.
4 points.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll,
You're a Leeds fan, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. We'll skirt past the 25 million titles that your guys had straight after that, but we
won't talk about United at the moment.
We won't talk about football at the moment. With it being cancelled now, we may not even. It may just the season may be stopped. So
the 5-0 away victory the other day, obviously.
Yeah.
Wasn't
much. Finally, last question. At the Live 8 concert, you again played with Robbie Williams. Who followed you directly after you guys on stage? Who came right after you at Live 8?
Was it The Who?
No. Well, they were no. They were I think 2 after you. There was one particular performer came on right after you.
Prince.
No.
Okay, who was it?
Peter Kay, the comedian. He did it. He did it.
The Who. I think The Who played before us.
Yeah, and then I think then it was Pink Floyd that finished it off, wasn't it? I think.
Pink Floyd.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you weren't too bad. It was okay. It was pretty reasonable. Pretty reasonable. So what are you up to recently before we let you go? Because obviously you've given us a lot of your time. You've been a blast, mate. What's the next few days, next few weeks, months got in store for Max besides the album and everything?
Yeah, I'm writing written a screenplay that I've been trying to get made for about 10, 11 years, and we're trying to get that nailed this year. We got nearly the cast, and it's all ready to rock and roll. Which is going to be really exciting. That's called Mr. Goodnight. That's a crime drama set in Manchester in 1946 and then 1966. But that's an ongoing thing. You know, it's very difficult getting independent movies made, man. It's so hard. But you can jigsaw things together with incentives and this and that, and then you can get your core elements, and then boom, off you go. But I started writing I think I want to do probably a 6-part drama television about a Idiot Savant pianist who's a world classical renowned pianist. He's an alcoholic. He's got the trappings of all the success of that, and a disastrous wife. And one night, after a wonderful performance of Prokofiev's Piano Concerto No. 3, he drives back up to Oxford because he's tutoring in Oxford. He's a guest lecturer at Oxford for the year because he wants to take his touring schedule down. He has a horrific head-on collision, comes flying out of the car, and
was he on a scooter?
No, he's in a Jaguar. He's in a Jaguar, but he has a horrific head-on collision. Comes out of the car and has brain damage and has total loss of memory, loss of music, loss of his life, everything. And then through the visits in hospital and through his getting better, we start getting flashbacks to that. It's not a linear story, it's like that. But I'm just nearly finishing the first episode of that. And then once that's done, I'll shop it out then and try and see where we can land it for TV companies, because I want to get that made, because I also want to be able to play that. And I got the Prokofiev the other day, and I got the sheet music, and I was like, I'm going to need about 6 months just to play 20 seconds of this, because it's a roast. It's very different,
Cool. Okay. Listen, mate, I'm going to say thank you for your time. It's been a blast. Seriously, it's been a genuine blast. I've been wanting to talk to you for such a long time, and you've lived up to expectations, because this has been so cool.
Thank you so much for your time, lads.
No worries. So, listen, I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day. All the best to your lovely family and the girls and the cats and everything else and all that stuff. So, you take care, mate. All right? Okay.
Hey, lads.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This episode of the 5D Podcast was brought to you by Lateflix.com, where you can find your comedies, horrors and thrillers. Those that stay up late, watch Lateflix. Here you can see the hit new cartoon Dick and Gordy, currently showing 3 episodes streaming on Lateflix.com, and new episodes coming only to Lateflix.com.